The sun dipped below the horizon as my friends and I arrived at Big Bear Lake for our much-anticipated camping trip. Excitement buzzed in the air, and we couldn't wait to immerse ourselves in nature's embrace. We set up camp near the edge of the lake, surrounded by towering pine trees that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. Little did we know that these woods held a dark history, one that would soon consume us in terror. As night descended, the chilling breeze swept through the camp, causing the flames of our campfire to dance wildly. We gathered around, laughing and sharing stories to dispel the growing unease that nestled in the pit of our stomachs. But as the hour grew late, a silence enveloped us, and our laughter diminished. It was then that I noticed something strange about the lake's reflection. I leaned in closer, expecting to see our campsite mirrored in the water. Instead, the reflection revealed a scene of desolation, a burnt and abandoned campsite with charred remnants of tents and fire pits. "Hey guys, look at this," I called out, drawing my friend's attention to the eerie reflection. Sarah, always the skeptic, brushed it off. "It's just a trick of the light. You know how spooky things can look in the dark?" Mark chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "Yeah, we're all a bit on edge. Let's not let our imaginations run wild." But Jake, always attuned to the paranormal, seemed uneasy. "I don't know. Something feels off. Maybe we should be careful." I agreed with Jake, but we decided to disregard the strange reflection and continue with the night. We laughed, we joked, but a lingering sense of foreboding remained. As the night deepened, we retreated to our tents. Sleep should have claimed us quickly, but an inexplicable restlessness hung in the air. I could hear whispers outside the tent, faint murmurs that seemed to drift from the depths of the lake. My heart pounded and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I unzipped the tent and peered outside. The moon cast a pale glow, and the lake appeared eerily calm. But then I noticed something peculiar. My reflection in the water was not my own. The image staring back at me had hollow eyes and a twisted grin mirroring my fear. Shaken, I retreated into the tent, hoping it was just a trick of the mind. But inside, the whispers grew louder, like a chorus of ghosts serenading the darkness. I covered my ears, trying to block out the haunting sounds, but they seemed to echo from within. I couldn't bear it any longer. I woke Sarah, Mark, and Jake, but when I looked at them, their eyes mirrored the same emptiness I had seen in the lake. They smiled unnaturally, and their words were a distorted symphony of sinister tones. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice quivering. Sarah's lips twisted into a macabre grin. "You were warned not to come here." Mark echoed her words. "Now you're trapped with us." I stumbled back, horror gripping my heart. They were not themselves. The lake had claimed their souls, leaving behind mere shells. My mind raced, seeking a way to escape this waking nightmare. In a desperate bid to break the curse, I ran toward the lake, clutching a small silver locket that belonged to my grandmother. It was a family heirloom, said to protect against malevolent spirits. With trembling hands, I threw the locket into the water, hoping it would appease the dark forces that held my friends captive. For a moment, the whispers ceased, and the reflection in the lake showed my friends as they were, alive and unharmed. Relief washed over me, and I thought the ordeal was finally over. But as quickly as it had stopped, the chorus of whispers resumed, stronger than ever. The water began to churn, and a sinister force emerged from the depths. The lake surged forward, swallowing the locket whole and dragging me into the icy embrace of its waves. Panic consumed me as I fought against the relentless pull. The water seemed to be alive, suffocating me, pulling me down into its dark abyss. The whispers grew louder, merging with my frantic cries for help. Just as I felt my strength waning, a brilliant light pierced the darkness, enveloping me in a warm embrace. I surfaced to find my friends huddled around the campfire, concern etched on their faces. They helped me ashore, and I recounted my harrowing experience with the lake's malevolence. Sarah, Mark, and Jake had no recollection of their eerie behavior. They were just as puzzled as I was. The night's events remained a mystery to them, but they were grateful for my intervention. With trembling hands, I reached into my pocket, only to find the silver locket safely tucked away. But as I looked back at the lake, I knew that the malevolent spirit still lurked beneath its calm surface. We decided to abandon the camping trip and leave Big Bear Lake behind. As we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that the haunting reflections of that night would never truly leave us, and that the malevolence of Big Bear Lake would forever haunt our memories. The wilderness has always held an inexplicable allure for me, so when my friends suggested a camping trip deep in the heart of a dense forest, I eagerly agreed. The woods were known for their ancient beauty and eerie silence, but we were adventurers, seeking the thrill of nature's secrets. Little did I know that our venture would lead us into a nightmarish encounter that would forever change us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we set up camp in a secluded clearing. The towering trees loomed around us like sentinels of a forgotten time, their branches creaking as if they whispered secrets to each other. Despite the warmth of the fire, an uneasy chill settled in my bones. As darkness enveloped us, we huddled together, our faces illuminated by the fire's glow. We laughed, shared stories, and tried to ignore the unsettling feeling that seemed to lurk in every shadow. Sarah, always fascinated by the supernatural, shared tales of mysterious disappearances and unexplained phenomena that had occurred in these very woods. "That's just urban legends," Mark scoffed. "We're experienced campers. Nothing can scare us." But as the night wore on, the forest's silence grew oppressive. There were no sounds of nocturnal creatures, no rustling leaves, just an unnatural quiet that hung like a shroud. Even the crackling fire seemed muted. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, breaking the silence. We strained our ears, and faintly we heard it too, a distant, haunting melody, almost like a mournful song carried by the wind. The sound seemed to come from every direction, yet we couldn't pinpoint its source. Nervous laughter erupted among us, an attempt to rationalize the unexplainable. "It's just someone's radio or a prank," Sarah suggested, though her voice quivered with uncertainty. But the music grew louder, more insistent, echoing in our heads until it became unbearable. It was as if the very forest itself was trying to convey a message, a warning. "We should go back to our tents," I suggested, hoping that putting distance between us and the eerie sound would offer some solace. As we settled into our tents, the woods around us became alive with the murmur of unseen creatures. The trees seemed to sway menacingly, their branches scratching against the canvas like bony fingers. I tried to push the unease aside, convincing myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks, but sleep was elusive. Every time I closed my eyes, the haunting melody crept back into my consciousness, accompanied by the gut-wrenching feeling of being watched. It was as though an invisible presence lingered just beyond the fabric of reality, observing us in the darkness. Sometime in the early hours of the morning, I awoke to the sound of footsteps outside my tent. My heart pounded as I strained to listen. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, and they circled our campsite. I dared not make a sound, fearing that whatever was out there might hear me. Suddenly, the footsteps ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. I held my breath, waiting for something, anything to happen, and then I heard it, the voice of a child. It was soft and fragile, like a whisper in the night. "Help me! Please, help me!" My blood turned to ice. The voice was faint, yet it carried an unmistakable sense of urgency and despair. It sounded like a lost and frightened child, but something about it felt wrong, unnatural. "Did you hear that?" I heard Sarah's voice from the neighboring tent. "Yeah, what is that?" Mark's voice trembled. Jake joined the conversation. "It sounds like a kid. Should we check it out?" I tried to protest, to warn them of the strangeness of the voice, but my voice caught in my throat. I couldn't explain why, but I had a gut feeling that something was terribly amiss. Before I could utter a word, my friends unzipped their tents and ventured out into the darkness. Panic surged through me, and I followed them, unable to let them face whatever lay ahead alone. The forest seemed to close in around us, its trees twisting into grotesque shapes, and the fire's light flickered, almost as if it were afraid of what was to come. We followed the haunting voice deeper into the woods, our flashlights guiding the way. The forest became denser, and I felt a growing sense of dread. It was as if the woods were leading us further into their depths, trapping us in their ancient clutches. The voice grew louder, more desperate, until we stumbled upon a clearing. There, amidst the trees, stood a child, her back turned to us. She wore a tattered, pale blue dress, and her hair cascaded down her shoulders like ebony silk. "Are you okay?" Sarah called out. The child didn't respond, but her body began to tremble. Slowly, she turned around, revealing her face. My heart stopped. Her mouth was a gaping void, and her skin hung loosely from her skeletal frame. She raised a bony finger to her lipless mouth, signaling for silence. We stood frozen in terror, unable to look away from the horrifying sight before us. The child's ghastly appearance seemed to flicker, as if she were shifting in and out of existence. Without warning, the haunting melody resumed, emanating from the child's direction. It was her voice, her desperate cries for help, but it was also the voice of something malevolent, a force beyond our comprehension. "Help me! Please help me!" Her voice echoed in our minds, an unyielding chant that sought to control us. I tried to resist, to turn away, but it was as if an invisible force held me captive, my body betraying my will. Mark and Jake were equally entranced, their eyes locked on the ghastly figure. It was as if the child's gaze had ensnared our souls, and we were now prisoners to her unearthly song. In a haunting chorus, we joined her lament, our voices melding with hers in an otherworldly symphony. The melody wrapped around us like a suffocating shroud, pulling us deeper into the abyss of the woods. Then, as suddenly as it began, the melody ceased. The child's horrific visage faded into the darkness, leaving us trembling in the clearing. "We need to leave, now!" I managed to break free from the trance, pulling my friends away from the haunting scene. We ran, not looking back, our hearts pounding as if chased by demons. The forest seemed to protest our escape, its trees closing ranks, but we pressed on, determined to leave this cursed place behind. As we emerged from the woods, the first rays of morning light bathed the horizon. We stopped to catch our breath, looking back at the forest we had narrowly escaped. In the distance, a faint whisper lingered, and for a moment I thought I saw the child's hollow eyes peering at us from the depths of the woods. We knew we were forever changed by that night's encounter, a reminder that some mysteries are better left untouched, some woods better left unexplored. The haunting melody continued to echo in our memories, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked in the heart.